Hey guys, just wanted to do my reaction video to Arrow, Season 6, Episode 20, Shifting Allegiances. So, last week's episode, it was basically just focused on Ricardo Diaz, aka the Dragon. Or Richard Dragon, if you're comic books, if you know about comic book lore. And it was just basically supposed to be giving him some more pathos and give you some insight into his motivation and his character, which I feel like they succeeded in doing for the most part. But it, but it was basically the story wise, it was just very meh. It was just him and Black Siren just basically trying to infiltrate this organization known as the Quadrant, which is supposed to be this is supposed to be this like clandestine organization that oversees organized crime throughout the country, which has never been mentioned before over the course of Arrow or this entire franchise for that matter. And Diaz seemed to have an easier time infiltrating and getting a seat at the table than trying to buy out and corrupt the entire law enforcement and government infrastructure of Star City. And it just showed signs of Black Siren having unease with just kind of unstable and Ricardo Diaz can be, since he's basically been like picked on and bullied his whole life, had to fight for food and money, from being abandoned by his dad in an orphanage, being picked on by a childhood bully in an orphanage that kind of like gave him this apparently inferiority complex and just wanted, and that's why he's like so hungry for power, which is why he seemed like torturing the son of a crime boss, and then going out of his way to find his childhood bully and burn him alive, to the point where. But I feel like this is like no better or worse than anything that Zoom and Prometheus was capable of. So I'm not sure why the show's trying to act like this is like the most, like this guy is like the worst of the worst that she's ever had to work for or been involved with. Well, like I said, the episode was kind of meh, but I guess Shifting Allegiances is going to focus more on, I guess, maybe planting the scenes for Laurel's redemption arc if she decides to go through with it. But again, this is a Mark Guggenheim run television show, so it's just like time will tell if they actually, stick the landing with it. You know what I mean? But I don't know.
Oh, I missed you so much.
I missed you too, Dad. I'm so glad you're back.
Well, I didn't have to do all this.
Hey, you've been in the
Well, I'm
hospital
glad
over a
somebody
month.
is.
I deserve a hero's
Got
welcome.
a tip from a friend of yours in Russia.
I have no friends in Russia. You're doing.
That's fixed. Also my doing.
This is Pachans. How you come to have it?
You told me that the Bratva exiled you because of your friendship with me. I owed you a debt. I owed them a debt. I paid it.
No, you're right. I was honorable, man.
Idiot.
Always supposed to be solitary. Put me with a team. Fill it with people that I care about. Splits my focus.
Is that why you think Diaz is able to beat you?
He took over the city while I was distracted.
If you seriously believe that, then you are even bigger fool than I thought. That is saying something.
Agreed.
What are you talking about?
Mr. Mayor, I've been meaning to congratulate you. Thought I'd come down here in person. I mean, you are the mayor of my city.
What did he walk out of an 80s movie?
And we have a lot in common.
We got more company.
Who are the guys in the suits? We gotta get out of here.
Back door! Over there!
Yourselves aside. Things got really out of hand. And I'm sorry for the part that I played in it.
Thanks, Hoss. Let's get back to work.
Okay, I'm having more technical difficulties and I'm getting really fucking pissed off with the software that I'm using and the video streaming service that I'm using to watch this episode, so the rest of this is just going to have to be a review. And if you have a problem with that, I'm sorry. But you know what? I don't see anybody else. I mean, to the people who appreciate like the effort I'm trying to put into getting these reviews up as fast as I can, I appreciate that. But the people, it seems like based on my views, it just seems like people are just impatient and they're not YouTubers and don't appreciate the struggles I have to put into trying to upload this video. So I'm sorry. So to sum up the episode, it blows my mind that how frustrating this season can be when you have Quentin finally getting pissed off and basically telling Black Siren where to shove it and kicking him out of his apartment for aligning himself with Diaz and forcing him to sign over some property. But then in the next scene, he immediately apologizes and talks about how he was forced to work with Damien Dark and understands how scared she is, and that because he betrayed Dark, that's the reason why she killed Earth One Laurel, so he understands doing something for a good cause, so he ends up signing it over. And Black Siren just talking about how she's afraid of Diaz and what he will do to her, and she's been around a lot of bad men before, and she's never seen anybody with more hatred, when it's like, she worked with Zoom, who had the power, who was like wanted to destroy the entire multiverse. He worked with Prometheus, who was essentially the Joker to Oliver Queen's Batman, and is far more depraved than and unstable than Diaz. And then you had Caden James, who is probably the most tame of the four people she's worked with, but it's like she keeps constantly playing second fiddle to these villains. Most of them she can probably just like kill in an instant. I mean, her first introduction to this franchise, the Earth 2 Laurel, Black Siren, was her in The Flash, Season 2, Episode 22. She leveled an entire building, the entirety of Mercury Labs, and I just don't understand. I just find it hard to believe that she would be this terrified of him where he can just like kill him in an instant and just get out from under his influence and it just end the trouble he's causing Star City then and there. And that's the other point where it's like Oliver is putting more trust and fate into Anatoly, a guy who was like a former like Russian mobster who's been on the outs with for over a year, than his own former teammates who he's arguably has just as long as, or even a longer history with, depending on which character we're talking about. Like even more so than relying on his own wife, for crying out loud, and naturally, he ends up like being just held captive and held captive and thrown in jail because Diaz has pretty much like bought out the entire law enforcement and government infrastructure of Star City. So now next week is supposed to be his trial, Oliver's trial. So he's basically, and I don't understand why everybody keeps talking about how like, oh, he's much more badass and he's better off working alone. Like that's when the show's at its best. That's when the character was at his best. Season 2 was universally considered the show's best season. He was not working alone. It was him, Diggle, and Felicity, and Sarah, and well, then we had Sarah and Roy later on, and it's also like even without the additions of Sarah and Roy, it was the three of them working together to take down Malcolm Merlin, who orchestrated an entire conspiracy to level the Glades. He never would have been able to do that on his own, without their help. And he was only like working out alone for like the first 3 episodes of season 1 before Diggle and Felicity ended up joining his operation. But Diggle joined his operation, then Felicity joined around like episode 14. So I just figure it's a load of crap, and it even goes to show with like Diggle and the new Team Arrow being able to reconcile and be able to make more of a dent in Diaz's operations than Oliver has, thus far, since trying to like cut all his ties and thinking like he's got to go about this solo. And it just kind of makes the character look like a bit of an idiot or just the writer look incompetent because the entirety of season 5 was about legacy and family, and how even Malcolm Merlin, of all people, pointed it out that, and even Diggle pointed out that having people around him was not a weakness, it was his strength and was kept him grounded and kept his head on his shoulders. And now this is just kind of showing, how much he needs that team. I understand. I'm just as frustrated with, how repetitive and tiresome the interpersonal drama among an ensemble can be. But I mean, you can't really argue against the fact that they were more effective against the war on crime in Star City. And I mean, as much as I was not happy to have Renee back, it was interesting to have his to show that he was traumatized by at least when he was like shot or like injured in like probably I think it was like episode 1 or I think it was like episode 1 from the bullet wound, even though there wasn't an exit wound. It was like that wound that got opened up again during his fight with Oliver, which he had to get hospitalized again, and he was afraid of being out in the field and leaving his daughter behind, in the same vein that which made him not so different from Oliver, who was initially afraid of going out into the field and getting killed and not being able to come home to William. There was even had the moment where like Zoe, it says like, oh, I know you guys like go on a mask and go and fight crime. You guys talk really loudly, which it wasn't just that she overheard from the other room. It was like they just talked within 5 feet of her, so it wasn't like hard for her to figure that out. Even giving a speech that just don't let her be a hindrance and to stop doing what Renee's doing and like fighting for their city. It's like she says like it's my city too. It's my city too. And even the fact that it's like you can tell like the scene between Oliver and Diaz when they're just trying to fight with one another is so crippling from the Dark Knight, with Diaz saying, "Oh, you think you're so tough because you spent 5 years in hell? I was born in it." And even down to the point where it's like they're beating the crap out of each other, and like the background music just drops out. But naturally, it's like I'm glad that they were able that to show that Oliver, with all of his like about decades of training, that he would be able, in fighting, that he'd be able to take Diaz down, at least in a fair fight. And it also shows about Diaz, where he had to pull a knife on Oliver in order to stab him in order to get the upper hand. And it shows that even Anatoly's realizing that maybe he's gotten in too deep with Ricardo Diaz, and he was even willing to help Oliver escape had Diaz's henchmen not come in to turn him over to the police. And even Black Siren is troubled by it. It's like, why did you go through the trouble to obtain this property legally when you didn't have to? And it was just to exert his authority, and it was just like it just seemed like kind of redundant. It's like, just get the just get the property anyway. But overall, I mean, I like the fact that the team's reconciled. That's like a high point. Like I said, the scenes. I like the scene with Quentin talking to Black Siren in the mayor's office, even though it got undercut by the following scene, because it's like I feel like he puts too much faith in Black Siren. Has got to realize that he can only put up with her crap for so long, and let her keep abusing his his faith and his trust. But also like this. I mean, also like a few of the scenes between Oliver and Anatoly that was okay. I mean, it's nothing on par with like the Capuchon. I think it was the episode from season 5 where it was just like almost like a mostly flashback episode juxtaposed with Adrian Chase torturing him in that cell. Just because I feel like it just kind of like it just shows Oliver that how foolish he is of trying to go about it solo, and now he's just landing himself in like deeper trouble. So I don't know. I mean, I liked watching the promo for next week where he's on trial. You see whether or not Laurel's actually going to have a hand in whether keeping him out of prison. And with even somebody in the Green Arrow costume breaking into the courthouse, and then the person pulling back the hood and being revealed to be Tommy Merlin, which I was like slack-jawed at. So one's wondering if maybe this is some kind of, and the theory online is that maybe this is Human Target dressed up as Tommy Merlin. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out and how for like the next last 3 episodes of the season. But overall, it's fine. I mean, it's I don't know. It's whatever. I'm just sort of like it's like crap like this where I just feel like I'm glad when Wendy Miracle and Mark Guggenheim are not going to be showrunners next year, and they're going to be replaced with Beth Schwartz, who's been on staff for a while. He was promoted to co-executive producer, and now it's going to be executive producer. So maybe it'll be interesting to see what ideas that she brings to the table, because this week's episode of Supergirl was written by a PA, and that was one of their strongest episodes. So putting somebody in a higher position of power to have a say in what's written, what gets the okay, what's written, and all this other stuff. Maybe that'll, they can either, the quality will either stay the same or improve somewhat, but time will tell. But I'm kind of at the point where I think this season needs to kind of wrap up, and I feel like the only reason why I feel like it should get another season is so the series can end on a high note. But how do you guys feel about the episode? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like this video, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.